Good afternoon and welcome back to Community. We are so delighted to have you here with us. We have a great show lined up. We're doing part two of the church and the movement. And so we want you to sit back and relax. But before you get too comfortable, we want you to go ahead and begin sharing this live stream because it's going to be awesome. So go ahead and start sharing it, posting it, putting it into your different groups, tagging your friends, telling them to come in and watch. Thank you so much. Portia,
What's up,
so how
y'all?
you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm having a good week. So far, less stressful than last week, so I'm feeling a little more zen. So I'm,
Okay.
I'm happy to be here today with my
Okay.
girl Jewel.
Awesome. That sounds really good. Well, guys, Portia and I will be joined this week, and in the coming weeks, we'll be joined by another one of our NAACP members who's a member of both the Young Adult Committee as well as our Community Coordination Committee, Miss
Yes.
Nichelle. And so Nichelle will share with us today some of the announcements, and she's also going to be producing one of our future episodes. So
Yes.
we just want to welcome her and get her acclimated to the show, but also to get you all comfortable with her just as much as she's going to get comfortable with you. Of course, you have
It's
anything
been a
before we
long
bring in
time.
Nichelle?
You said what?
You have anything before we
I was
bring
gonna
her
say,
in?
y'all, Michelle is an NAACP baby, so she grew up in youth and college, and she's transitioning to the to the adult branch. So this is what we want to see. We want to make sure we're building that bridge, and that's like the main purpose for our committee, the Young Adult Committee, is to build that bridge from youth and college into the adult branch. So we're super excited to have Michelle on our team, and so we can go ahead and welcome her in for our announcements. Y'all, she stole my job. She stole my job now. All right, Michelle, you can go ahead and come off mute for us. All right, welcome to the show, y'all. This is Michelle, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to you to go ahead and do our announcements. So take it over, girl.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm gonna just do some of the national news announcements. The NAACP versus the voters lawsuit explains that the rule imposes illegal and harmful requirements on the emergency relief funds allocated to public school districts under the CARE Act. NAACP virtual march on Washington will be on August 28th, commemorating the 57th anniversary of the March on Washington when MLK gave his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. The 111th NAACP Virtual National Convention will be held on September 13th to 26th. Registration will be $30 for adults and $20 for youth delegates. Reach out to the branch secretary for more information. This will also include movie screenings for the first week, and the second week will include unit, branch, and regional meetings. And to find out more, you can just visit nwcpconvention.org. Also, there will be a virtual cinema package for $12 to view John Lewis' Good Trouble. You can watch this at watch.eventive.org/johnlewis.play. If you use this link, 5 of the $12 will be going to the NAACP, so use the link.
Yes.
And lastly, there will be a virtual town hall on Wednesday, July 29th at 7 p.m. CST. April Ryan will facilitate a conversation between himself, CEO Derek Johnson, and Senator Mitt Romney. And to register, you can just visit nwcp.org. And that's all I have for right now.
All right, thank you, Michelle. So just want to call out again, y'all, the March on Washington. You want to make sure you check that out. You can go to the NAACP national website, naacp.org, to find that information and sign up. You can get text alerts. It's going to be a 2-day event from August 27th to the 28th. So definitely go check that out. We would have loved to do it in person, but we know we don't want to make Corona has hit our community harder than it has hit any other community. And we're going to talk about that next week. Michelle's going to go into more of that next week with health disparities. But we want to make sure that, we are taking care of ourselves. And although we know that we are, excited about the march and the commemoration of that, it's a wonderful idea. But we wanted to make sure that we were able to, keep us safe in that. And then also call attention the convention, the 111th convention, which is going to be virtual. The original dates were in August, but they have updated the dates, and they're going to be now in September. So definitely go to the NAACP convention.org website that Nichelle talked about to get more information. If you're interested in being a delegate, the delegate level is determined by your branch secretary. So you can get with her for your units across the country. Reach out to your branch secretary to get more information about being a delegate. So thank you so much, Nichelle, for joining us for this first part. We're going to bring you back later for some more announcements, but we appreciate you being here. So thank you so much, girl, for being here for us.
Thank you.
All right, and July, you're going to come back in for us?
Hey. All right. That was great. That was great. So for Portia, do you want to stick around for the one-on-ones?
Absolutely. And I almost forgot y'all. Y'all know I do this spiel every week. We are a membership organization. We are powered through our members and our volunteers. So we need you. We need you. We need you. Membership is $30 for a year. If you want to have a deeper, more long-lasting relationship like July, myself, and a couple of our guests that are also life members, subscribing life members, we want to make sure that you visit our local website, naacphouston.org. If you happen to be from one of our areas that are joining us today, we have New Jersey in the house, we got Cleveland in the house. So make sure that you visit those individual sites to register to be a member there. But if you happen to be somewhere else in the United States, go to naacp.org, join us. $30 for a year. You join today on July 29th of 2020. You'll be a member for 1 year to July 29th of 2021. So couldn't forget that. Make sure you join us. We need you in the movement. We need you to help push our mission forward. So yes, and I'll stick around for a little bit for the 101.
Okay, perfect. So our first guest, he's a member of our branch, and that's why we made him first. Mr. Kirkland Hall. He is a member of our Young Adults Committee, and he works a lot in the community. And he's also in ministry. So Kirkland Hall, how you?
He came out with the Kappa stuff today. I see you.
No. I got this on because I am like freezing.
These Kappas, they don't miss a chance to put on.
I am freezing.
How you doing, Kirk?
I have this on. My wife and I literally just got back from the doctor, so please forgive my background.
Oh, not a problem. Not a problem. So tell. Okay, yeah. So, Kirkland, tell us a little bit about what you do at Community of Faith. Tell us a little bit about your church, and then we'll go into some of the things that you guys are doing in the community.
Okay, yeah. So, my name is Kirkland Hall. I am an associate minister at the Community of Faith Church. That is under the leadership of Dr. James Dixon II. I work alongside him through various ministries at the church. One of the main ministries, two main ministries I'm very focal on is our young adult ministry and our social impact ministry. And just for, I guess you could say, promotional purposes, every week we are having a food drive. We partner with the Houston Food Bank. So every Wednesday from 10 a.m. to about 3 p.m., we have food at the church. The address is 1024 Pinemont. You don't have to register. We ask that you register, but you don't have to. So if anyone needs food, we try to tell people, even if you don't need it, someone may need it and they may not say they need it. So we've had a lot of people to come. So make sure you spread that word. It's on my page. And yeah, that's what we're working on. We're very active. We're partnering with the NAACP just to make sure our church stays in the fight in a very proactive way, and not just to be reactionary, but just stay in this fight from all aspects.
Awesome. So Kirkland, as a minister and a Black man, I would say a young Black man in this time during this movement, how do you see yourself pulled or stretched from the standpoint of advocacy and ministry, and how do you make them go hand in hand?
Well, advocacy and ministry, honestly, I want to just say it, July. It's not it shouldn't be a separate thing. It actually should be put together, because as a minister, you're preaching the gospel. You're preaching the good news, the liberation to the oppressed. So the advocacy and the ministry are one and the same. And when you look at the Bible theologically from Genesis all the way to Revelations, you're looking at the good news. You're looking at the Word of God, which is to liberate people from the oppressed, and that's how you determine whether it's relevant, because it's resourceful, but then you have to make it relevant to this day and age, meaning making it applicable.
Okay, excellent. Do you find yourself as a minister where, let's just call it what it is, we've watched, or some of us watched George Floyd being killed, right? You joined us on May 8th to do I Run with Maud. We know that it's been 138 days since Breonna Taylor was killed, and no one has been arrested, indicted, even slapped on the wrist about her death. As a husband, soon to be father, congratulations. And as a Black man in ministry, how do you not just be mad as hell? And how do you minister through that?
Well, and this is going to be a point where I actually quote my pastor. He preached a sermon this past Sunday, and it was entitled "Violent Kingdom Pursuit." And just to be honest, yes, I'm mad. I'm frustrated. It puts you in a different perspective. I think it was maybe 2 to 3 weeks ago. I like to exercise, and I was leaving the house. I think it probably 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, just to go for a jog, clear my head. And before I left, my wife told me, she said, "Be careful." And And at the point where I'm not thinking about she wasn't thinking about my health. She wasn't thinking about, whether I was hydrated. She specifically was thinking about me going jogging in a suburb neighborhood. And that, I've just to be very transparent, in this neighborhood, I've been accused of stealing my own car. I had a key. I walked up to my car. A cop sat there and watched me come out of the house, get in my car, and pull me over a mile away. And his reason for pulling me over was he wanted to make sure I wasn't stealing my car because my alarm went off right after I opened the door. So it's frustrating. It's very mad. It's very frustrating. And I believe that now, whether you're a minister or a lay member, if you're not in the fight, your complaints are null and void. You have to be in the fight. This is a fight not for me. This is a fight for my child that's about to be born in a couple of weeks. So you have to be in that fight. Just to answer your question, yes, I'm frustrated.
Okay. I'm still stuck on the officer who watched you with your key, open your door, get in your car, drive your car, and pulled you over. Did you report him? Was he a constable, a sheriff, city?
He was. Honestly, I don't know. It was one of those nights. I'm a student at Houston Baptist University. I got home, and this is the full story in short, the 20-second version. I was coming home from class. I got home. I'm a fan of ice cream. They just built a new Dairy Queen. I wanted to go to Dairy Queen and get some ice cream. And I knew that they closed at 10 o'clock. It was approximately about 9:15. Got in my car. A couple years ago, I got in a house fire, and my keys were inside. So now when you stick the key in my car and you open the door, the alarm comes on. But as soon as you start it, it goes off. So I did that. This guy seen me plenty of times. It was one of those nights I didn't get his name. It was one of those nights where I was just ready to go. He had another guy. I think he was training. I don't know what it was. He had a black guy, actually. I know he was black. He was on the passenger side. The cop was on this side. Mind you, I'm a minister. I'm a student. My car is full of books. So guy pulled me over. I just wanted to make sure you weren't stealing your car. Now, this guy seen me come out of my house more than once, on more than one occasion. And this night, like I said, he waited till we were out of the neighborhood about half a mile away, and then he pulled me over.
Okay.
So it was just he was just, trying to show off for the trainee.
He was harassing him. Let's call it what it was.
Harassing.
I got the first though. If that ever happens again, you must report it. And the reason being is if we don't report, that's how
it keeps happening.
It goes. unchecked.
Yeah.
And it still may go unchecked even if you report it, but at least you did your part.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we get so frustrated, we just take it and be like, I can't believe this person did X, Y, Z, but I didn't do X, Y, Z either.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's tough though.
I agree with you.
Did you get your ice cream though, at least?
Man, I did not. That night, I did not get my ice cream.
You turned around and went home, huh? I would say something.
We'll have to get you some Dairy Queen.
I would say something like, Kirkland and I are friends on Facebook, and I remember you posted something, I was maybe a month or so, 2 months ago, and you were just like, how old were you the first time you had the police pulled a gun on you? And I know we had a sidebar conversation because I got pulled over in college, driving, and I had a nice car that my dad had got me for my birthday, and and y'all might tell me I was wrong because I didn't know. I cut through a parking lot of a fast food restaurant. I was running late for work, and I cut through a parking lot of a restaurant, and I past the stop sign, right? So they pulled me over for using a private property to avoid a traffic signal. But it was 2 white officers. It was maybe 5:30 in the morning. I was working at a retail store at the time. And I'm from Michigan, y'all. So this was in Michigan. And it was 6 o'clock in the morning. It was pitch black outside. And I had 2 officers come to the side of my car with their guns drawn, on me. And I think it was a whole, y'all would have been surprised at how many people, listed this. And I was 21 or 22 when that happened. And so just considering that, and even thinking about that in the lens of the church, how do you counsel individuals that go through that? And you went through it yourself. And I actually had somebody else, another friend of our show, Anthony Collier, he actually posted something the same, a couple of days ago with the same question. So when you have that anger towards police, I obviously it was a reason for them to pull me over, but it was no reason for them to come with their guns drawn for a routine traffic stop. So how do we talk about that in the church? And I know you made mention to Bishop Dixon preaching somewhat about this weekend. How do you handle that when you're upset and you're angry and you want to do something maybe, but how do you handle that in the biblical sense or in the Christian way of living? How do you handle that anger?
And I first want to say, being a Christian and being kingdom-minded, that's my way of life. So I attempt to make every decision and every action I do based on that. So what I want to say is, to handle that, we have to not just be emotional, but we have to make sure we're logical. And that's why I promote being proactive. I promote being in the fight. I promote you guys are doing a forum, a drive, or a march, a protest. We have to be proactive in those ways. And I think that's the main way. I mean, we preach it on Sundays and Wednesdays. We have to make sure we live it out from Monday through Saturday. That's one of the main things I really, really want to focus on, is we're actually fighting after the shout.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Kirkland. We're going to bring you back for the round table.
Okay.
We're going to switch over to Deontay. Let me see.
Before I got something. Don't let
Go ahead.
Deontay lie to y'all. He's not from Austin. He's from Houston.
He's from Houston. I know, but he's in Austin.
He's in Austin now.
Yeah, he's in Austin now, so that's his home. Just like Houston's my home now.
I love Deontay. That's my little brother, y'all.
Good stuff. All right. Is Deontay with us? I know he went to grab some water. There he is. Hi, Deontay.
Hello, ladies. How are y'all?
Kirkland just threw you all the way under the bus.
I know, and look, I already got to come after him as if that's not hard enough. But we'll see how it goes.
So tell us about yourself, Deontay. We know you're a Houstonian. Now I live in Austin. You work for the city of Austin, or you work? Let's just say you work for local government.
For local government. Yes.
Right. I don't know if it's the county or the city. I don't know if you're with Travis County, but anyway. So you're a public servant. Tell us about yourself.
Okay.
Real quick,
30 seconds about 26 years.
Yes.
What's that?
I said bite-sized version.
Okay, 36 to 26 years. Let's do it. Okay, I'm from Houston, Texas. I actually go to the same church, grew up in the same church Kirkland did. I attended, what else do I say? I'm passionate about social justice, social activism is very relevant. I really do enjoy it in a lot of forms, and we'll talk about that later, I'm sure. I attended Houston Texas University here in Austin, Texas. Shout out to our HBCUs. And I also work for the city of Austin now with youth engagement. I've worked with youth engagement with children with autism, to our own children, to those with behavior needs, and also interned around the country doing a few things. So that's a little bit about me. I live in Austin now, but I'll always be from Houston. So I'll
always be from Houston.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, well, awesome. So we're happy to have you here. I know last week you chimed in on the roundtable for part 1. So we're excited to have you here for part 2.
Thank you.
So as an official guest.
Advocacy. Tell us about the advocacy work that you've done or are doing currently in Austin.
Currently in Austin. So first of all, thank you all for this platform. I think this is incredible. I think this is an awesome series, and the conversation couldn't be more timely. So I'll say what I'm doing here in Austin. As I said, I have done work with restorative justice here in Austin. What that is, that's using, especially within the school, removing punitive methods of correction and behavior improvement, and implementing restorative methods. So I've done that within the high schools throughout Austin. I've also done it throughout the community. So having those tough conversations that we may not want to have, but understanding that at the end of the day, humanity is our common ground. I've also worked along with restorative justice, worked with resolving issues with police enforcement. And the same issues that we've been dealing with now are the same issues we were dealing with 4 years ago, 400 years ago, however you want to phrase that. So that's some of the work I've done. We were actually working, I was here before Chief Acevedo moved to Houston. So that's been a very interesting transition to witness. But some other advocacy things I do, I would say, I guess some of my advocacy would be in my field of mental health. I've become very passionate about mental health. In the last year, I did a retreat last November. Oh God, life feels so long ago. No, back in November 2019, we did a retreat for Black mental health, focused on tragedies, traumas, triggers, and triumphs. So that is some of the work that I do in regards to advocacy. So I don't know if that helps answer the question, but that's a little bit.
It does.
It does.
Are you planning another one of those retreats for 2020? Maybe a virtual one?
Actually, we are. I guess I'm going to go ahead and announce it now. Then,
go ahead and plug it.
We are working on doing a virtual one, but this one will be focused on it'll be Remedy. That's the name of Remedy 2.0, and it'll be focused on teens ages 16 through 18, so we can heal holistically and generationally. So we're trying to fix these issues within our own peers and our young Black kings and queens, so that they don't face the same things we do. I'm a firm believer of the statement of we're born looking like our parents, but we die looking like our decisions. So we want to make sure that our Black children come up and they understand the value that they have. They don't have to face the same mental or turmoil that we may have.
Excellent.
I'm going to tag in there. Yeah, thank you, July. I'm going to tag in there. You mentioned mental health, and I'm happy that you segue into that, because we had, looked over your Facebook, and, I called Shamira. That's our Shamira the plug. Yeah, that's my co-chair. So she was the one that recommended you to us. I appreciate her for that. So I want to shout her out. But just thinking that I saw some stuff about mental health. And so we're talking about the church and the movement, it's the reason for this conversation. So last week, one of our guests kind of brought up, that we need to talk about it more in the church, and the church being able to handle, issues of mental health and mental illness. So taken from that lens, like, how do you see that fitting into the church, and how can the church, kind of start to grapple with that and kind of be more, inclusive of those type of situations? Because I'll say this, I had a conversation not too long ago. It was from another church in the Houston area, where they have a lady that sometimes has spells, in the middle of service, and their first mind is to get her out, right? It's to move her out. but there's nobody in the church that knows how to handle or be able to deal with her in a way that allows her to still be there, right? They want to remove her from the service, but those people, whether you have a mental illness or not, need to be in those services and need to be included. So how do we as a church or as a movement, you know, start to work that in, and how do we prepare our, you know, pastors and ministers to be able to handle, you know, issues of mental health?
I think that's a great question. And let me first answer with a disclaimer. I'm not a counselor. I'm not licensed in anything mental. So let me first put that out there. But I also say that as a springboard to say that you don't have to have those credentials to understand people. And I think that the first step that we have to do is learning what mental health is. There's a lot of, and we know you don't learn it overnight. If we expect people to, we want our officers to be trained in learning things, we have to be responsible in learning within our own pews as well. I think learning how to resolve it, what it is, and learning how it fits within your congregation amongst your parishioners. I think that's important. And then you have to teach leaders and those that are in the pews how to handle that, because I'm sure there has to be somebody within our churches, especially our churches in Houston, with somebody that has some connection to resolving these mental health issues or supporting those while they're dealing with it. I think learning is the biggest thing. And once you learn about it, and not just learn about the issues, but learn about your people, and then learn about how people are responding to it, be willing to teach that to others, because that's really what it is. I can't say I love you and not want to learn about you. So I think that's very important to our church. The first step is learning what it looks like, learning what mental health is, and then having somebody in leadership, a point person, whether that's pamphlets, whether that's information, someone you can point to that says, hey, this is what mental health is. Because for far too long, we don't view it as ministry. And the Bible says, well, I won't go into those scripture references.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I can do that. Okay, then. Let me
Go ahead.
Our minds have to become like Christ. And yes, those scriptures are argumentative in some ways, but our mind is just as important as our body, just as important as our spirit. And if we don't support those things and support people through them, we're going to be in a very, very devastating point in our churches.
Excellent.
So,
thank you. That was great. Thank you, Deontay. We're going to check back with you in a moment.
Okay.
Kirkland says Q's Oregon. I was thinking the whole time. I don't know if have you preached your trial sermon yet?
Let me tell you something. I've done almost every ministry at church, but I'm not a preacher. Let me say that.
But listen, but you may be a minister who might have a sermon in him, because I hear it coming out of you, but that's a whole nother thing.
All right. See, don't let Kirkland stir you. Don't let Kirkland stir you like that.
It's not Kirkland. It just sounds like to me like you got the juice.
Sound like you came up in Dixon's church is all.
Yes. Dixon will come out of me very, very shortly, very soon.
I heard him.
Yes.
See you in a minute. All right. Next up, we have our friend Kerwin.
Bishop Dixon is our vice president of our branch. We're not picking with him, y'all.
Oh, no. Yeah, we're not picking with Bishop Dixon. Everybody know that. All right. So, Kerwin, what up?
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Good evening.
So, Kerwin, I'm put you on in the hot evening. I'm put you on the hot seat.
Oh, Lord.
No, I ain't gonna do you like that.
I don't know what the hot seat is. Now I'm trying to see what it is, July.
I'll mess with you about that later. So welcome back. We're so happy to have you. You know that you're always welcome here. You're our official distant co-host. You got it?
I love it.
Okay. Long as he got it. All right. So tell us what's going on in your area. Tell us what's happening in Jersey around ministry and advocacy and ministry and activism. Tell us what's going on in Jersey.
All right. So I'll say most of what I do, I can sort of divide it into three small groups, right? One is the NAACP. And so that deals with the voter registration, that deals with education, mobilization, those things that the NAACP is known for, and the thing that we've been doing for years. But also through the church, I do youth work. I do different organizational development type things so that our ministries, our churches, our leaders, our members can be more effective in whatever they are doing so that they're impacting the community too. And then I'm blessed to have a job that is totally in alignment with what God's purpose is for me, which is helping to educate and equip people. So in all of those areas, the NAACP, through the church, through my work, I'm able to help do exactly what Deontay was talking about, and help shape the minds of people to think differently so that we don't get caught in the traps and the systems. So that's broadly what I do. But as far as our branch activities, we have some great partnerships and things that are in the works as far as educational programming, mainly because of what's happened with police violence and state-sponsored violence and police brutality. So there are many organizations and churches that are coming together to have these difficult conversations to try to figure out, hey, we recognize this is a problem. We recognize that we have not been as attentive to this as we should have. How can we help? And so now there are many coalitions and partnerships that are forming that are starting to get legs, right? We're starting to identify what educational programs we're going to do, how we're going to partner in the future to bring about different things. But one of the things that I'm just blown away by is there's a group of high school students recently that organized a showing of The Hate You Give. And the place that they, yes, and Rumson, New Jersey. For people who don't know about New Jersey is one of the most expensive states to live in, one of the wealthiest places in the nation. And Rumson, New Jersey is one of these very nice enclaves, right? And the high school students, some from the Rumson area, some from other school districts, wanted to bring the conversation to the area about how they see the world, how Black lives are being treated and how people are responding. And somehow, either intentionally or unintentionally, there was miscommunication about the purpose of the event. And so law enforcement were on high alert. Residents were afraid to come to the event because they thought it was going to be a protest and where people were going to come into their town. So that was a sad instance, but out of that, there were people who came, who were there and who heard what was happening and saw the genuine interest in trying to understand different perspectives, that more conversations and events are in the works now. And so it's like the opportunity to share and build bridges is becoming greater, both through the NAACP, but also through the work that we do in the church.
That's awesome.
Okay, excellent, excellent. You said mindsets, and my mind went straight to a book called Mindsets by Carol Dweck. Is it Dweck or Dweck?
That's in my mail, my cart for Amazon right now.
Wow.
I'm gonna order it.
I give you a copy of that. But yeah, mindset. So let's talk about mindsets a little bit. So when we look at mindsets, how, say, that community made the assumption, even the assumption that a protest was going to happen there. Why would you need police activity for protests? But what about the mindsets of the organizers or those advising the organizers? How do you think they were affected by the response of the community?
So what is unknown to me is how much of this type of the response, like in the background, that the organizers knew. Because like these were high school students, maybe 10, 15 high school students that just wanted to bring people together and have a conversation. And they went through the proper protocol. They got the permits or whatever. So I don't know that they knew all of this was happening in the background. I found this out later. But even still, I think they were more encouraged because they recognized that type of response as further need to have the conversation. And so I'm inspired by that, because that says that fighting spirit is not going away. That flame for justice is not going away. And these were diverse students. These were not just Black students that were organizing this. This was a group of diverse students. And it was so heartwarming to see that their mindsets, the students' mindsets, I think are open and are able to learn and grow and the types that you want. I think the automatic assumption or reaction that showed something different, I think that's a fixed mindset that says anything that is challenging, I have to immediately push it back.
Okay.
And that was more than likely the
you.
mindset of the adults and not of the children. That was definitely the mindset of the parents and not the kids.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll bring you right back. We're going to talk with Kayla, and we're going to bring all y'all back for a round table. Got some good questions lined up for that. The conversation should get interesting. So we'll see you with Kerwin. Question, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm excited. I'm excited to get everybody together and ask them more questions. And I'm happy that we were able to kind of talk to everybody individually, about to bring Kayla in individually to see what everybody has going on. And then we can bring them all together. Because I think last week we didn't get a chance to see, hear what everybody was, who they were, and how this kind of came together. So we're excited to have some connections. We got some connections to and through. So I'm excited.
All right. I'm bringing Kayla in. Hey, Miss Kayla.
Hey.
Saved and woke. My girl come through with the t-shirts every time.
I love a good t-shirt. How y'all doing?
Girl,
good.
Your shirts be a ministry altogether. Your shirts are a ministry and a protest.
Yes.
Listen, every time we walk out the door.
Hold up now. Is protest ministry?
Listen, I believe so.
I think it is.
I believe so. Y'all see me because my computer.
We see you.
We see you very clear.
Yes, I certainly believe that protest is ministry. I think that resistance is ministry. I think that is what Jesus Christ taught us, like when he resisted the way of the church, right? Like the way of the synagogue, not the church, modern day, or what was Judaism back then. That was a resistance. It was a resistance when he went in and flipped the tables and told them, we ain't gonna keep, charging the folks and money changers and all of that.
Yes,
right.
It's certainly a resistance.
Excellent. So tell us what's going on in Cleveland, Ohio.
Cleveland.
Midwest representing. Thank you for the Midwest.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. We over here on Eastern Standard Time, so I'm trying to get myself together. But Cleveland, we got a lot of good things going on. Here in our Cleveland branch, we just reignited our religious affairs committee. And so that's being head up by a young minister here that is definitely justice oriented and has an organizing background. So I'm really intrigued in how he's going to galvanize some of the older generation and bring in the younger generation as well. Within the space of like ministry, I've seen a lot of pastors and bishops and leaders having conversations kind of in the back room about what it really looks like to push organizing in a more holistic way. And they're having conversations about what that looks like to speak truth to justice from the pulpit and not mess up their 501c3 status, which is really interesting. So I'm like, okay, y'all are really trying to dive into this work here. And then last week we talked about like how I started this new job, and while I'm not here on behalf of that, there are some interesting things coming down the pike on a national level that we're going to start implementing here in Cleveland and statewide. The first, we are doing trainings to engage faith communities. So next week is nationally, it is our Faith Week. It is the anniversary of the signing of the Voter Rights Act. And so this is a springboard for us throughout our 8 states at All Voting is Local to engage and connect with the faith leaders who are doing justice work in our states, and then let them know that we have this new toolkit and this new training that is coming down the pike to really engage people And it takes a look at the past and the present under the campaign And Still I Vote. So we're looking at all the different things that has happened in history to suppress the vote and how we continue to galvanize people and still show up to the polls. And then the last thing that we have going on is what is called lawyers and clergy, lawyers and collars. So we are looking to engage legal professionals, which I am a part of that community, and faith communities as well, in doing social justice and advocacy in a robust manner. So that is what is happening here in Cleveland and in Ohio. And I'm really looking forward to leading the charge with that.
That's exciting.
Excellent. What you got, Portia?
Okay, so we talked about what's going on in Cleveland. So last week you kind of delved into something, and I asked Deontay this a little bit because I knew he's like, pushing more of the mental health wellness for the Black community. You talk a little bit about having mental health, like, so not necessarily services, but like, pastors and preachers reaching out to individuals in the mental health field to talk about how to handle that in the Black community. So what would you like to see, ideally, like how would you want that ministry to kind of come together where preachers and pastors in the faith community are reaching out to counselors, or if they're even leaning on people that are actually in their own membership to give them that autonomy to be able to, reach in and, help out in those situations?
Yeah, I think that when we talk about mental health, I think every Black American needs to go through some type of let me sit down and unpack the traumas of slavery in the US, right? And so when we are talking about our Black churches in particular, we have to understand that everyone who sits in our pews comes to our churches with some level of trauma. And whether it is manifest in a mental health episode or just the traumas that we carry day to day, we have to be cognizant that we have them, right? And so I think it would need to go beyond a program or an auxiliary. I think that when we start to train our staff, when we start to train our ushers, our deacons, our ministers, anyone who is coming in contact and serving people, and what it looks like to be trauma informed and have a trauma informed approach with people, then we really stop re-traumatizing them when they come into the service, and we see them for who they are. And we understand that they come in with their own burdens. And that's essentially what we are supposed to be doing in the church anyway. But oftentimes we don't have the proper language, or we don't have the right heart, and we don't have that compassion for people. So you got the most evil person on the door as an usher, and that's the first person they come into, and they checking you at the door because you ain't take off your hat, and you're a gentleman, you're supposed to take off your hat in the door, but they're not seeing that you came here for some type of healing. And so I think that when we are engaging people who have gone through so much, we have gone through years and decades and centuries of trauma, then we have to take a holistic approach. And so that may mean, from the pulpit to the door, having everyone that serves in ministry understand what it is to be trauma informed, go through the processes, have the conversations with the counselors themselves, and begin their own healing process so that they are not serving from a broken vessel.
I love that you said that. And that was the word. It really was. And I say that too, when you come, we say at the church, come as you are, but you really have to mean that. If somebody walks in not looking the way that you think they ought to look, some people, and I've had to check myself sometimes, and even as a Christian and growing up, I grew up Pentecostal. So sometimes you have a way of, that you're supposed to dress the way you're supposed to look. And when people sometimes come into church, you kind of you came to church like that. But we really have to come from a heart. And I've grown over time to just say, it really doesn't matter. They're coming, they're here because they knew that they needed to hear this word, or something touched their heart, or something pricked their heart, to be in this place. You can't treat people, bad. And when you had the wrong people on the door, sometimes people are turned away. So I appreciate you saying that, because you really do have to check yourself sometimes and say, like, did I really just?
Girl,
They
I
know
grew
where
up
they
in
are.
I grew up in a Pentecostal apostolic church, so I know all about the look of holiness, right?
Yes.
But we got to understand that holiness is not a look. And when people come into our houses of worship, the Bible says that no man comes to the Father on his own, but they are drawn. So something drew them to this place, right? And oftentimes we, in our carnality, we try to change a behavior before somebody's spirit and soul has been converted. And so we need to allow people space and room to be converted. And conversion oftentimes looks like healing. And so I would stress, like, allow people the space to be healed and be whole. And then when they become healed and whole, their behavior, their dress, their attitude, and everything else changes around them.
And we just got a comment that said we forget about how man looks on the outside,
Excellent.
but God is looking on the inner man.
Hello, somebody.
So, thank you, Miss Pamela, for saying that.
Right. God looks at the
God
heart.
looks at the heart.
And Kayla, hold tight. Portia, Kayla, hold tight. I'm gonna bring the gentleman back in, get this round table started.
We got the full
right.
today. Yes.
All right.
This is gonna be good.
So here's the first question. And I know time is going to be an issue because we all have a lot to say, but we got to be mindful of time. And so I'm going to go ahead and tell you 10 minutes to the hour. We're going to start giving our final wrap up. So we can jump in, but I just want you to be mindful of time so we can be, so we can all share what we're going to share. But the first question is, and it goes back to what Portia brought up earlier. There's a meme that's going around social media, which asks the question, how old were you the first time you had a gun pointed at you, or when you were first harassed by law enforcement? So real quick, if that applies to you, whoever wants to jump in first. And if you want to spill about that experience a little bit, that's cool too.
Go ahead.
So I'm thinking
it ain't Zoom. We talking.
Sophomore in high school, on the way home from school, football practice. I was in the car, myself, a couple of friends, right in front of Fallbrook Church, which is right outside of Silver Glen. Cop pulled us over, guns drawn. There's about two to three cop cars, and his reasoning was that it was a lanyard around the mirror, the front mirror, the rearview mirror, and he said that was gang related. So that was my first time. I actually never told my parents about that either. Yeah.
Okay, a lanyard, gang related.
Yeah, I've held that in for a long time. That was the first time the guns were drawn, but I have other instances without the weapons.
Okay. Anyone else?
I share my experience. So
I'll say, and like Kirkland, I haven't really shared mine. I haven't shared it publicly. So mine was, I believe, my freshman year of high school in my backyard at my mom's house. And so I'm doing something in the backyard. I looked over the fence, and there was a Karen as a neighbor. We had Miss Karen. So Miss Karen, I go back to the backyard. I'm doing whatever I'm doing in my backyard as a ninth grader. And I hear the gate open, but I don't think anything of it until like a second later, because I'm glad I did not follow my instinct to go over there, because coming inside the gate was a sheriff, a constable with his gun pointed. And of course, he proceeded to ask me why I was there. And I told him only because I lived there. And so that was a very, and to be honest with you, it was one of those things I didn't realize that I suppressed until this situation happened. And it reminded me, until the recent situation of George Floyd happened, and it reminded me how much that should not be a normal that I accept, and how often that's happened for too long. So that's mine.
I'm glad you said it, because there's a part 2 to this. So this is the setup. Kerwin?
The first time I had been harassed or a gun pointed at me. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's happened.
So yes, I have had it happen, but in some ways it was normal to expect that I'd be pulled over just for no reason. I'm pulled over one night, my tag light is out. Is the reason that I stopped you, so I'm gonna give you a warning. I get home, I look at my tag light, it's not out, right? That was minor. But I'm sure there was more that I just have put out of the back of my mind, because it does me no good to hold on to that, because that will cause anger in places that I don't need it to be.
Okay. Kayla, you have an experience?
I've never had a gun pulled on me, to God be the glory. But I grew up in inner city public schools, and so police presence was always very real. I remember the police being present in our schools, and not like, what do they call them, the school resource officers? Like, we actually had police officers in our schools as young as seventh grade. 7th and 8th grade. And I just remember, like, you know, when there would be skirmishes between kids that weren't even like, that never escalated to like a fight or anything like that, we would have the officers kind of like bumming through, you know, knocking kids over, grabbing up young people. And we were always really like, why you gotta be so, like, why you gotta do all of that? Why you gotta be so rough? And I think that as my brothers have said, like, you kind of normalize it when you grow up in that type of environment, but it is outraging for a 7th grader, 8th grader to be in a place where they are constantly surveilled. You got to go through metal detectors to come into school, and the officers are there not to serve you, but like to protect the property. So yeah, that was my experience coming up in a urban school system.
Okay. And so the reason why I asked that question to open up the roundtable is because we all have that one time, that first time, or that memory that's cemented in our brain that has created a trauma for us. And I know earlier we talked about the mental strength or the mental weaknesses that we all carry. Some of us, we deal with it better than others. But in our lanes as advocates and activists and ministry and working in ministry, how do you balance those personal, very personal experiences? And two of you said you haven't talked about it, you suppressed it. So how do you balance that and use it to minister and to lead in this space? How can you use it? Have you even thought about using it? That type of thing. And anyone can take it.
I want to hear Deontay on that one.
Okay, since I was selected, I really was hoping I was coming second or third. So say the question one more time for me, please.
So earlier, when everyone did their piece, we all kind of talked about mindset, experience, mental health, but it still all went back to that part of us, right? And so those traumas that we experience, I don't know anybody Black that does not have a trauma, and I've lived all over this country, that does not have a trauma related to law enforcement, right? And they could be the top of the pay chart, they could be the executive, but we all have a story. How do you utilize in today's time, seeing what all we've seen just in 2020, how do you take that trauma and use it, or have you even considered using your own trauma, your own personal experience to navigate in advocacy or activism and or in ministry?
Thank you for repeating that. I think the first thing is accepting the anger. The anger is real, and it's okay to accept the anger. It's not going to go away just because we don't talk about it. I think you have to accept the anger. However, anger makes great fuel, but a bad vehicle. If you have to use it to get you somewhere else. If anger is just loud enough for you to loot or riot, however you do it, which I am a radical supporter of rioting in areas that's not our own, but I won't talk about that. But I think anger it makes a good fuel if you're going to head somewhere, because anger is what pushes us to do certain things. So I think you have to accept that anger, but also make sure your heart is pure with that, so that whatever you do when it comes to advocacy, that you're not bringing too much personal things in it that you miss the purpose that's at hand. Far too long, we have too many activists that bring their personal perspectives in, and that's great. We need your personal experience. But if you're not careful, that will anger you to the point that you're not effective. So I think accepting the anger and then figuring out, how do I use this anger to mobilize what I really need to do? Because we all have the same anger, but what is the solution that we're working towards? So I think that's the motivation. If I have to put a faith part on it, I have to understand that Jesus took everything that made him, nothing Jesus did was for him. Everything he did, angry or what, it drove him closer to his purpose. So I have to know that whatever I'm dealing with, first of all, I'm not alone, and then accepting the anger, and then figuring out, how does this get me close to the purpose at hand? So
all right, we're gonna come back to that, because I like something that you said. I want to see how we can bring that out. But anybody else have, like, how do we pivot, or how do we use, those personal experiences as we advocate? To July's original question. Anybody?
I think your personal experiences have to inform your ministry. I think that what God does is God uses what he brought us out of, what he delivered us from, as the person, the thing, the place that God wants to use us to go fish. And so we have to use what we've experienced in a way that can be beneficial. So if we've dealt with it, if we've managed it and found a way to come out of it, our ministry then is to people who need us to help them get through it. Because who has a more authentic voice than somebody who's come through it, right? So I think that our traumas have to be used to inform the work that we do, because God didn't bring us through it for no reason, right? There's a purpose behind everything that happens, and that purpose is so you can mentor, partner with, pull somebody out of the place that you used to be in.
Excellent. We can move on to another question. I just wanted to hear some around that issue, and also to put that thought into the listener's head about our own traumas and how we can use those. Go ahead, Portia.
Deontay, you said something when you were speaking about, like, making sure that you said anger is a
bad fuel, but anger is great fuel, but a bad vehicle.
Okay, anger is a great fuel, but a bad vehicle. So, Kayla, I see you agreeing with that. So, I mean, that statement really stood out to me. I tried to write it down, but I was like, let me make sure the words I wrote it down correctly. So, Kayla, share your opinion on that. And I think that there may be some people that have the opposite side of it, saying like anger does fuel. And you made another comment, Deontay, also about, like, you're a supporter of rioting in our not in our own neighborhoods, but we'll come back to that. But Kayla, go ahead. And
Deontay was hitting like gems, so I was like, I didn't even need to jump in on that one. I think it's so spot on, right? I think that you have to like the Bible tells us to be angry and sin not, right? And so there's this conversation like, what is sin? And just because of civil disobedience does not equate it to sin, right? Like when Jesus flipped over the money tables, he was angry and he caused destruction, right? And so for those
he was rioting.
He was rioting. And so those, passive Christians that are kind of like, oh, we just gotta love and turn it. And I'm just like, do y'all see my Jesus though? Like, Jesus came up in here and was like, shut all of this down, tear it up, right? And
I'll flip all this over
and tear it down.
Just a heads up, I'm in Florida and the sky just opened up. So if we get a lost connection, we're gonna apologize in advance. Prayerfully, we got enough saints on this call start praying that we don't lose no connection.
Pray thanks.
We keep power, and we're good. Go ahead.
Kirkland and
In
Kerwin
Jesus'
prayers go
name.
higher than mine. So I'm
In
gonna
Jesus'
let them
name.
pray.
You gotta make sure your prayer get through the ceiling, y'all. You gotta make sure it get through the ceiling.
Mine
mama
probably,
said.
mine probably like, yes, Kerwin and Kirkland, they got a higher connection.
Okay, go ahead, Kayla. Go ahead, Kayla.
No, I agree. I agree, my brother. Like we have been brainwashed to kind of think that or see Jesus as this passive, like the Lamb of God, but we need to look at Christ in his lionship. Like he is the king. He is the king of Judah. And so we can step into that as well and allow the anger and the vengeance to kind of fuel us to do this work. And I think it's so important. We have so much that we are told to like forget and suppress and move on. But until we endure for the goal that is set before us, like we will never get anywhere. And so that anger does need to be a fuel. That passion does need to be a fuel in order for us to arrive at purpose and really step into the fullness of who we are supposed to be and how we're supposed to show up. And that brokenness and that trauma and everything that we've experienced, that is a part of it. When Jesus told Peter, like, the devil wishes to sift you as wheat, but I pray for you that your faith would fail you not. And when you are converted, convert somebody else. And so when my brother was talking about, like, we have to mentor somebody, we gotta bring somebody else. Our traumas, everything that we have been through, is to get us to a place where we can pull somebody else out too, but we have to be converted. We can't do it from a place of brokenness.
And I just want to add in there, like that's something, and you did touch on something, like when we're talking about, we had a conversation, Kirkland was involved in this conversation we had last year about intergenerational relationships too. So I'm not going to go deeply into that because we have more of the millennial age range here. But in terms of mentorship and like using your testimony to empower somebody else and bring somebody on, it's the same thing as we are all advocates, social justice advocates on this call, like on this platform right now. We also have to make sure that we're, bringing our next generation up right along with us. Because this next generation, y'all, is going to tear the roof off. Like these young people right now are so powerful and they're so much more like they just gutter with it, y'all. Like there's so much really, they just have a different level of, like we just gonna do this. They ain't got nothing to lose. Because they can't exactly. They have nothing to lose. So I just wanted to add that little piece in there too. Like as we're in our Christian walk, as we're witnessing and we're bringing somebody else into the fold, we also have to do that as advocates as well and bring our next generation in. We can learn something from them. So we just gotta. I want to say that, and then shout out to our older generation as well. Like y'all got to mentor us so we can come along with y'all as well. So, if anybody else want to add, to that about using your personal and your anger to fuel the revolution, so to speak, or to fuel the movement at all. Anybody else want to comment on that? Kirkland, you got anything? Kerwin, you got anything?
I agree with Deontay. What he said. One thing I say is you have to use your trauma for motivation. Just don't let it overtake you. You want to make sure you're using your emotion to press forward. Just make sure it doesn't overtake you and you become illogical with the things that you do. That's all.
And I do want to interject a little bit and say how important, I don't want to rush past that, how important it is to be healed before you lead. Because there are a lot of people that are bleeding on people that they want to lead, and when you do that, you take everything personal. Your emotions are at the center of it. So I think that is a great point. You have to be.
Can you say that one more time? Because that's a T-shirt. Heal before you.
You have to heal before you lead. You got to heal before you lead. Because
break that up, Taylor.
You got to.
That's a tease.
Kerwin has two. All right, so Kerwin, you got to come on.
I haven't thought about that. Yeah, so I hear that, and I don't disagree with it, except What is the one thing, the absolute one thing that is required for someone to be a leader?
Empathy.
Absolute one thing.
Empathy.
People.
Somebody to follow you, right? And so if you have people that are bleeding on you and are not feeding you, it is your obligation to go find somebody that will feed you. It bothers me that I have people in churches that are hating the leader, but saying, I ain't going nowhere because I was here longer. How smart is that? I just don't understand that. Because God didn't call you to a building.
And we
God
also have it in our organization.
Yes.
I think that's also applicable, Kerwin. I think that's brilliant to bring that out about congregations. But the same is true in our organizations, be it sorority, fraternity, community organizations such as NAACP, Urban League, you know, our grassroots, our institutions. It's almost, it goes back to that word from earlier. It's a mindset which creates a brokenness and that defeats or keeps us defeated, because in order for us to move forward, and this is my favorite is, in order for us to move forward, we all have to be in our own lane. That's how traffic moves. Everybody stay in their lane, they drive the right speed. You can't be weaving in and out because you're gonna cause an accident. And so when we're moving in the right direction, because we can all be going the right direction, we just doing it in our own way, that creates unity. And it goes back to what I said last week. If we can stand on God's word and on, say, the principles of Kwanzaa, right? And just basic humanity, I think for the church portion of this conversation, we'll find great success.
Let me say this about
for the community organization part.
I was gonna say one thing about the church. We have internalized white supremacy in our institutions and our organizations, and we can't realize why people are leaving them, right? The same things that we're complaining about with our government, we can say it to our churches, our institutions, and we have to say, and what people are saying with their actions, right, is like, I don't have to deal with that, so I'm not part of it. I choose not. But what happens is that division makes it easier for people to keep us where we are. So it's like, we have to learn how to listen to each other, so that we can hear what people are saying, because we want the same thing. We have different methods of going about it. And just like you just said, July, if people stay in their own lanes and stop trying to tell me how I should do it, and if they focus on how they do it, when God is in it, all of it is just like a school of fish. Everybody's going to the same place, same time. We're having fun doing it. We're not there yet.
And once we break that, we like accept that, like it's okay that someone makes their I like food and I'm hungry, so somebody make their wings because it's National Wing Day. Somebody make their wings because they put the lemon pepper on first, whereas you put the lemon pepper on last. It's still gonna have the lemon pepper on there. Like, come on. But does everybody get to eat the wings?
Yeah.
Yes, we all get to have the wings. We've got to stay in our own lane. And I think that's what defeats us both in the movement as well as in the church. And when you put the two together, because let's face it, the church is very much so the center of our community. Whether you're a believer or not, you know that the church traditionally has been a center. I mean, I've said this 1,000 times. Look at what we did prior to the Emancipation Proclamation or prior to the Civil War. If we were free, we opened churches. Mother Emanuel was a prime example of that, right? Denmark Vesey was not peacefully asking to let his wife and son go. He was like, we're going to burn it all down. We're going to get our people and we're going to be out, right? That was in the 1840s or 1820s, I want to say. What did they do? What was attacked, though, beyond killing Denmark Vesey? Anybody know? The church. They destroyed the church. Again, the church is the center. That is our place of shelter in our communities. That's the place of organization. But now we've opened our churches up so much, we don't get to have that organization, you know?
And I think a part of that is our churches, we say we want unity, but in reality, we really just want uniformity, which is not the same thing, which we'd rather look alike than be on one accord. And so that's why we have people bringing those Moses methods into a Joshua generation. And it's like just the same thing that brought us out of Egypt is not what's going to help us go into the promised land. So I think that understanding the difference between uniformity and unity is where our church really has to have the conversation about.
Thank you for saying that.
What'd you say?
So you got to watch out talking like that. Church folk ain't gonna like that.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're in the desert.
God called me to piss off church people, so it's all good.
We are in the desert. Okay. We have not even faced our Red Sea. We know the Red Sea is there, but we're too focused on Pharaoh and his army that we can't get it together and just realize that if we just keep moving forward, God's promises will be true.
And if we keep moving forward, he'll drown the Trump for us.
See it.
We just go, y'all. We are nonpartisan. We are nonpartisan.
Oh, Pharaoh.
Listen, and God can do all of that, but it still takes us to be in alignment and have a right heart so that we're not walking for 40 years when it could take us 40 days. And I think that is important. We can look at the children of Israel and we can look at Jesus in the wilderness and look at the difference. And will you go through and suffer and endure for this time and come out with the lesson that you need so you can leave in 40 days as opposed to 400, 40 years, or 400 for us in America. So while we are going through this time, that I truly do believe that last year was significant, and we commemorated 400 years in this time on this land. But 2020 is a turn of a decade, and we are starting to see us walk through this wilderness. And so we, as the body of Christ, need to get it so that when it's time for our time to be up, we can leave and come out of this and go where we need to go and continue in ministry as Jesus did, as opposed to staying and walking in circles and having these conversations. So I'm glad I can be a part of this conversation, because this is the things that will get us together and say, okay, we can't die in the promise. We can't die in the wilderness. We got
in the wilderness. We got to make it to the promised land. Absolutely. So
I have a question.
Go ahead, July.
Oh, I'm sorry, Portia. You sure?
Because
it's a yes or no.
So go ahead. Because I was gonna wrap it up. So go ahead.
It's just a yes or no. You got to be. You might can say 4 words. We really can't go long with this.
4 words, y'all. 4-word answer.
So look, the church. We're dealing with the church and the movement. Is it okay, church folks, to have Peters on your team in this?
You better.
4 words. 3 words. You better. There we go. All right.
Absolutely.
Anybody else?
Peter is an essential.
All right. Thank you for following. Thank you. So July, y'all, little insight there. July is always the one that says Peter had a sword. But Peter had a sword. What was Peter's sword for, Portia? Peter had a sword. She tells me this all the time, y'all. All the time.
And who did he walk with? And who knew he had it?
And who didn't prevent him? Just picked up the ear, put it on.
Right. He didn't say stop. Don't do it, Peter. Put it away, Peter. Because he already knew what Peter was gonna do. Because replacing the ear wasn't about Peter. Replacing the ear was to show them folks who he was.
Made an example.
The Roman soldiers, who he was and his almightiness. Okay.
Yes, y'all. Because July is our Peter, y'all. In case y'all didn't know. July is our Peter. Okay, so we went a little bit into that. And I mean, that was a good segue, y'all. So last week we talked like real like philosophical level, like what we want to see from the church. So now I want y'all in our call to action, right? So now I want some like specifics, like what do y'all want to see the church do? How can the church be one? We've said time and time again, the church and the movement are one, right? Advocacy and living and walking the Christian walk is one, right? So what do y'all want to see concretely, from the church in your community, from the church as a whole, as we move forward in this movement? And we can just start, whoever wants to go first. Go ahead, July.
I was saying just 20 seconds each to the speakers. 30 seconds?
30 seconds. Can y'all do it by side? Less, 45 seconds or less. 45 seconds or less.
And it's almost to the topic where I shared with a couple of leaders last night. I said, we have an election day coming up. Yeah, let's say we do vote so-and-so out of office. Well, when a new person comes in, racism doesn't stop. Police brutality doesn't stop. We have to keep advocating. So we have to have partnerships with churches and advocacy organizations. And I like July always says, you can't just be a member, you got to do some work. So, being a member of these advocacy programs and actually doing the work, whether it may be NAACP or a Greek fraternity, for example, get in, do the work, and let's be a part of the movement. Partnership is the key.
Thank you. Well, we'll just go that way. So, Kerwin, you can tap in now.
Yep. So I think the church needs to become an incubator for everything that we say that we don't have but need. So I believe the church can be an incubator for businesses in their community. I believe churches can start credit unions and finance corporations, all of those types of things. Churches are incorporated as businesses in most states. And so if you operate it like a business, there's ways that you can really impact your community while making opportunities for your people. But also as the church, we, the body of Christ, have to realize that we are all ministers, right? And ministry is not just preaching on Sunday, but ministering is ministry of presence, ministry of gifts and sacrifice and everything. So you should be ministering in all parts of your life every day. And when the body of Christ starts doing that, that's when change starts happening, because you don't have to come to a church to be ministered to if you encounter somebody who believes they're a Christian. Jesus didn't make somebody come to the church to get saved. When he was on the way, they asked for something, he did it. That's how we have to be.
Thank you.
I agree with all that's been said, and what Kerwin just said is kind of what I was going to point out. We have to take ministry beyond Sunday. Especially we have, as July said earlier, the church is the cornerstone of the community, especially the Black community. So I think, especially when it comes to youth, you have to have things that are relevant in the church. Do you have a social justice ministry? Do you have an AIDS and HIV ministry? Do you have a voter engagement, civic engagement ministry? This is going to be very controversial. Do you have an LGBTQ plus awareness ministry? Because these are people that are coming to church as well. And how do your members interact with? Do you have a mental health ministry? So I think we have to go beyond the auxiliaries of what we all know of church, with ushers, singing in the choir, doing announcements, whatever your role has been in the church. We have to bring church make it more relevant to our communities. We have to. So relevance would be my deal.
Yeah, everything that has been said is spot on. I think that the church has to engage in justice and righteousness as well. And so while we do the work on the outward, we also need to make sure that we are in alignment with Christ and his word. And so justice and righteousness should be at the pinnacle of what we are doing, particularly in the Black church. And I think our churches should look like the kingdom of God, right? And so all of the different institutions that Kerwin and Deontay and Kirkland have all articulated are necessary and empirical so that we can operate how we are supposed to.
All right, and July, I'm gonna let you tap me in on this one. Come on, girl.
Oh, I'm trying to make sure I have internet. I got knocked off with the lightning. So I don't even know where we are. I was over here praying.
What specifically would you like to see from the church in the movement? Since the church and the movement are one, what specifically do you want to see in our community?
For the church to be accepting of folks who are not a part of the church or who don't look like the church. So if someone says that they're a non-believer, that they're an atheist, okay, you're still, if I believe God, I got to believe that you're part of his kingdom and that you're still purposed. So I want us to be more welcoming to people who are working on the front line, who may not look like us or necessarily think like us, but they want the safety for all of us. They want the equity for all of us. They want the encouragement, the peace for all of us. I think that's important. And what the church has been doing for far too long is turning against the very people that they're supposed to be winning for Christ. When I was a child, the church I grew up in, we used to have this huge banner that says empowering the church to touch the world. And you can't touch the world if you got your nose up to the people of the world. You got to get out there and got to reach those folks.
That's what Jesus did.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we talked about that a little bit in our segment with Kayla. Like, you can't treat people, a certain way just because they don't look like they go to church. So I appreciate all y'all for coming in today to share this with us. Does anybody have any final words they want to say? I know I asked for specific calls to action, but if there's anything else that y'all want to share, if y'all want to, we'll just go around and tell people how they can follow y'all. If you're comfortable with people interacting with you on the social media platforms, if they want to hear more about you or connect with you, if you happen to be in the area, we've got Kayla here from Cleveland, we've got Deontay here from Austin, we've got Kerwin from New Jersey, the Princeton area in New Jersey, and then Kirkland, of course, is Houston, with myself in July. So if y'all want to just shout out how people can follow you or follow your branch, or whatever organizations that you're working with, working for, we want to be able to share that information so they can interact and connect with you guys off of here. So Kayla, you want to shout out your social media and Cleveland branch?
Yeah, so I can be found at Kayla S. Griffin, Griffin, at both Instagram and Twitter. And then our branch on Twitter is Cleveland or NAACP Cleveland, and on Instagram, Cleveland_NAACP. Follow us, like us,
Okay.
Deontay
McClendon is my name on Twitter, Instagram. I think it's like that on Facebook too, but that's me. My name is kind of hard to confuse. So yeah, there it is right there.
Thank you, July. Kerwin.
My handles are at Kerwin Webb, my name, 2 B's with Webb. Our branch, redbanknaacp.org. Yeah, get at me. I'm looking to help in any way I can, or, partner.
All right, and Kirkland.
Hey, you guys can follow me on Facebook at Kirkland Hall, and my Instagram is KP_Hall_. You can follow me for all the latest news and see where we're at.
And of course, we're going to shout out our Houston branch, NAACP. So you can always go check out our newly revamped website. It's amazing, y'all. It used to just be a landing page, so it has come so far. So it's amazing. So July just put that in the bottom there. You can also join our young adults page on Facebook. I post regularly. July posts. It's an open group. So if you want to post something, share information with the community, we would love to have you. Kirkland posts stuff from community and faith all the time as well. So we would love to have you join our platforms and follow us. And of course, membership. We have 3 different branches located or represented on this call right now. So if you happen to be in the Cleveland area, if you're in the Red Bank area, greater Red Bank area in New Jersey, we want you to make sure that you join. And if you just realize that we have some awesome young leaders in the NAACP and in the movement, and you just want to join our organization and be a part of this, go to naacp.org and join our organization now, because I know y'all don't think about it, but there are young people in this movement and in this organization. So we wanted to make sure that we were repping. And of course, last but not least, we want to rep the Next Gen program. We have 3 alumni on here. So NAACP Next Gen program, check it out on our national website if you want to be a part of this amazing group of collective of young leaders in the community. So
all right, I'm going to bring Michelle in just so everyone can see her. Y'all, thank you, Nichelle, for the announcements. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this week. We survived the storm, even though my lights have been blinking. I did lose Wi-Fi for a quick second, but we'll have to engage again on this topic, maybe in about a month, sometime in September, we can come back together. Y'all can let us know what you've worked on and what you've seen. So thank you very much. Y'all stay in the studio. Stay in the studio. And to everyone who is watching, thank you. And we'll see you next week.